Live from the Ken and Valerie Baker studio at WHYY, this is Studio 2.
On Thursday, July 23rd, welcome, friends, on Into the Program. I'm Cherry Gregg.
Say welcome neighbors on into the program.
Yes.
Welcome neighbors on into the program. I'm Avi Wolfman-Arent.
So, Avi, think about the people who live closest to you.
I'm thinking about them right now.
Do you know their names?
For the most part.
Yeah.
Not 100%. I'm not going to sit here and lie on live radio. Not 100%.
Yeah, me neither, right? And I asked myself, would I recognize them at the grocery store? Maybe one or two of them, but not
I think I
all
do
of
pretty
them.
well on recognition.
Yeah.
But maybe not names.
So here's the big test. Could you borrow a cup of sugar or an egg, right? Or would you feel awkward in 2026?
It just depends on the neighbor. Definitely awkward for some, but not awkward for all.
Yeah. So today, we're talking about what it takes to be a great neighbor. We live closer together than ever, but many of us know less about our neighbors than previous generations did. Growing up, we knew our neighbors. I hung out in my neighbor's backyard. Their kids played with us.
Right.
It was like a neighborhood. It wasn't just a neighbor. So anyway,
just a bunch of people living together.
Exactly. And so today we're asking, what does it really take to be a good neighbor? Have we lost something important, or are our neighborhoods simply changing with the times? And if we want stronger communities, where do we even begin? And so we would love to hear from you as well. We want to hear some of your stories. Tell us how you make an effort to be a good neighbor, and what does community look like where you live. You can give us a call, 888-477-9499. The email is studio2@whyy.org. And if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you can put your comments in the chat. We have some great guests that could give some advice on breaking the ice.
Oh, I like that. Advice on breaking the ice
with your neighbors, bringing folks together, and I think I've lived in neighborhoods where I did know my neighbor, and I really liked it.
Oh, it's the best.
Sometimes they're nosy though.
It's the best when it works. It just doesn't always work.
Facts.
But maybe if you wrote them a rhyme.
Yeah.
That would be my advice on breaking the ice.
Oh, that advice.
You're swell. I'd like to get to know you well.
That'll help. Or bring some snacks.
Yeah.
People
by the way,
snacks.
can we just put this on the table at the top? Let's just put it out. Are you a good neighbor?
Oh, that's a good question. That's good.
Oh no, are you?
Are you? I feel like I am. I always come with good energy. Good energy. I come with tomatoes,
that's great.
From the garden. And my husband, when it snows, he
shovels.
He shovels. We good people to know, man.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. How about you?
I believe that. I think I am a pretty good neighbor, but I could be better. I'm not a proactively good neighbor, but I don't mess with people. If someone needs help, I'll help them. If you kind of initiate with me, I think you get a very friendly response, but I don't initiate as much as I think I could or should.
Yeah. And so that's what we're talking about today. 888-477-9499. Email studio2@whyy.org. Tell us how you make an effort to be a good neighbor, and what does community look like where you live.
How if they have a neighbor dispute? Can they call in with that?
Ooh, yeah. If you got one.
Like a good one.
Anonymize
Second half
it. Talk about that. You don't have to tell us your real name.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or you can tell us your nickname or your initials or something. And it's Thursday.
It is.
Which means it's DJ of the day. Today is a good day for DJ of the day.
Indeed it is. So we're looking for a song related to the topic of today's show. And we'll end the show with one of your proposed songs. Send your submissions to studio2@whyy.org. I'm not exactly sure who is judging today. It's not EP Kevin. So no. I don't know who you have to appeal to.
Maybe producer Paige, maybe producer Ben.
I think it's maybe Hazel. Either way.
Producer Hazel. There you go.
But anyway, so if you have a song on the topic of neighbors or connections or Hey Ya by Outkast, let me, some sugar I am. That's not really what they meant by that line, but
you could squeeze it in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get creative.
Yeah.
Studio2@whyy.org.
Trio of news stories.
Let's get to our trio.
Yeah.
And speaking of sort of neighborhood level pushback, there was a lot of pushback to two proposed ICE detention facilities that were going to be built in Pennsylvania, one in Berks County, one in Schuylkill County. Well, now officially those plans have been scrapped. It was already moving in this direction, but if you need some recap, there were two warehouses in Pennsylvania that were proposed to be converted to ICE detention facilities. According to Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, yesterday, the Department of Homeland Security has officially axed those plans. This is part of I would say, a larger trend across the country, where we're seeing some scale back or some adjustment by DHS, where they had planned to create these new detention facilities, and now they're either pivoting or scrapping those plans altogether. But again, the two that were proposed here in Pennsylvania are no more. This actually goes in concert with another story we've been following this week. This is about a Citizens Bank. Cheltenham Township, which is in Montgomery County, they recently closed a couple of accounts with Citizens Bank in protest of that bank lending to two private prison companies who build ICE detention facilities, CoreCivic and Geo Group. And in the same week, Citizens Bank itself announced it would no longer lend money to those companies. Although they did not necessarily say it was for political reasons, the bank seemed to suggest, this is via reporting in the Inquirer, that the two companies don't have as strong a need for capital anymore, and as such, they're not going to lend to them. So there's a little confusion there about why exactly Citizens Bank made those decisions. But it's all kind of under the umbrella cherry of there being this sort of local grassroots pushback to the companies that build these ICE detention facilities.
I mean, look, it's the power of community, right? And the community was not playing. And I wanted to bring up a story that we talked about on the show. Remember when Delaware residents protested Avelo Airlines, and they sort of forced but didn't really force the company to stop doing deportation flights?
Yep, I do remember that.
They created a whole Delaware Stop Avelo coalition. They leaned on state lawmakers to remove tax incentives for their jet fuel. I mean, it was like all kinds of stuff going on. And Avelo Airlines made the decision. It was a business decision. They didn't necessarily say it was because of the politics, but it kind of was, that they were going to stop doing those flights. And so they stopped.
Yep.
But it just goes to show the power of community.
Speaking of transportation, story number 2, Cherry.
Oh, yeah. Philadelphia's taxi industry is slowly grinding to a halt as the fleet of available cabs in the city gets smaller and smaller by the year. The culprit, you probably know, Uber and Lyft and other rideshare apps. But according to the Philadelphia Inquirer, taxi services in other cities have joined forces with the rideshare companies. Cities like Boston, Newark, New Jersey, and other places, they allow cabbies to use an app that integrates the platform so that they can easily switch between taxi rides and Uber or Lyft rides.
So all in one app, you could call a taxi or call it
and
Uber.
and the taxi cab can pick up Uber folks or Lyft folks. In those cities, Uber and Lyft rides account for 30 to 60% of a cab's revenue. In Philadelphia, that is not the case because Pennsylvania has strict regulations separating the rideshare and taxi industries, and taxis just can't do that. According to the PPA, the fare for taxis are set by the city, whereas ride shares offer flex fares. There are also safety inspections and other requirements for taxis that ride shares don't have to deal with, so they don't allow taxis to mix. Curb, the app for taxis, had lobbied to change things, but they eventually gave up.
Wow.
And the consequence is that the taxi industry here is in free fall. New numbers show that the number of taxi rides dropped 88% between 2015 and 2025, and the city went from having 1,600 cabs to now just over 600. And to top it off, I mean, people used to spend like $500,000 for the taxi medallion, right?
Yeah, not
that
anymore.
allowed you. Now it's worth about $12,000.
Incredible.
Hitting rock bottom.
Yeah, and I'm sure on some level all of these regulations had some purpose, perhaps some good intention behind them, but at this point you just have to wonder if it's strangling the life force of the entire cab industry. What good is the regulation doing? I mean, you don't want to regulate the cabs down to zero, and it doesn't seem like there's a logical way back from this. So I don't know why these lobbying efforts weren't successful. Perhaps we'll have to learn more about it, but it's hard to imagine that these regulations are benefiting the cab industry at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Third story.
This was interesting to me and surprising to me, and I was just surprised I'd never heard about this before. Cherry, did you know there is a Philly accent in American Sign Language?
I had no idea.
So this is something that researchers have been documenting for about a decade. And there's a nice write-up in the Philly Voice about their work at the Philadelphia Signs Project. So basically, there are signs that people use here in Philly that are not widely used outside the region. It's like a Philly accent. So, for example, a Philly person might stroke an imaginary beard under their chin to mean boss. But that's not common outside of Philadelphia.
They use a totally different sign.
Also, for some reason, a lot of months are signed differently by people here in Philadelphia, you know, January, February, March, etc. So why does this accent exist? Well, apparently the deaf community in the region was historically quite insulated. We have one of the oldest schools for the deaf in the entire country here in our region. For generations, it was basically the only place you could go to learn American Sign Language. As a result, there was a very specific style that developed out of that school, and that the accent that we're talking about today, the Philly accent in American Sign Language, seems to trace back to that one school.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, sign language is like any other language, and words are always created. New words are always created by a younger generation. I mean, John, totally a Gen X word, right?
Right.
You got sus now, you got situationships, new words added to the dictionary. And so why wouldn't new signs be added to, you know, the lexicon there?
Apparently, however, in this case, the Philly accent in American Sign Language is fading away, which is why they're doing this project. They're trying to preserve or catalog a lot of these signs. And that's in part for arguably a good reason, which is that a lot of people are no longer confined to learning sign language in isolation in a school like the Pennsylvania School for the Deaf. And so that regionalism that has developed has started to fade away. And so it's an interesting project. It's an interesting history. I had no idea about any of this, but apparently there is a Philly accent in American Sign Language.
Yeah, boss.
Yeah, that was an interesting one for boss.
That's right.
I very much
like
wonder
that.
how that
I will
developed.
walk around and be like, you a boss, I'm a boss, we a boss. Anyway, we're talking about neighbors today. Would you be my neighbor? And tell us about your effort to be a good neighbor. 888-477-9499. We will be right back. This is Studio 2.
And welcome back to Studio 2 on WHYY. I'm Avi Wolfman-Arentz.
And I'm Cherry Gregg. Nowadays, it is pretty easy to opt out of neighborliness if you want to. Need a cup of sugar? Just use Instacart. Garbage disposal broken? There's a YouTube video for that.
A recent study from AEI's Survey Center on American Life shows that the amount of time Americans spend with the folks next door has declined over the last decade. There are potentially many reasons behind this downward trend, so we're taking a little time at the top of the show here to dig a bit deeper into the numbers.
Yeah, joining us now is Daniel Cox, the researcher behind the study. It's called Strangers Next Door, the Decline of Neighborhood Socializing and the Class Divide and Belonging. Daniel, welcome to Studio 2.
Great to be here.
Great to have you. We'd also love to hear from you, our listeners, today. Tell us how you make an effort to be a good neighbor. What does community look like where you live? Our number is 888-477-9499. Our email is studio2@whyy.org. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, comment in the live chat. Maura from Ridley Park says, it's an unspoken rule between my neighbors that when it snows, whoever is out first does all 3 sidewalks. So throughout the snowy day, everyone can keep up. Also, 4 of our houses get together Friday nights on someone's front porch for libations. Ooh, fancy word for a nice, good drink. Maura says, I love my neighbors. And I love that comment from Maura.
Yeah, I want to hang out with them. I like libations on the Friday nights.
Who doesn't like libations, Jerry?
So, Daniel, I have to say, your report has one of the saddest titles that I've seen in a while, Strangers Next Door. And so I wanted to start there. Tell us about your study and why you did it and what you found.
Yeah, so this is a national representative survey of American adults age 18 and over. And we were really interested in understanding how Americans relate, or perhaps how they don't relate, to the people living closest to them, their neighbors. We've seen declines in a whole lot of other social activities. Government surveys suggest that we're spending a lot more time at home, but we really wanted to see how these cultural and technological changes in American society was impacting our relationships with the people next door.
And what were the big top line takeaways? Did they surprise you?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to dig into with this study. So if folks are interested, I encourage them reading the report. But one of the top line findings is we saw a really significant decline in just how often Americans talk and engage with their neighbors. And this decline was especially pronounced among certain groups. For instance, we found that among young adults age 18 to 29, the amount of time they spent with their neighbors was basically cut in half over the last decade or so. Wow. So really, really a precipitous drop.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed was that there was a difference between people with college degrees and those without, as far as like how much they engage with their neighbors, but almost how much they trusted their neighbors. Can you tell us a little bit about what you found about that? And then if you wanted to speculate on why you thought that difference existed.
Yeah, this is something that we've been tracking for a little while, that we're not just seeing differences in financial outcomes between those with college degrees and those without, but we're seeing differences in sociability and social trust as well. And that for this study, we saw that Americans with 4-year degrees are much more likely to have a neighbor over their house, to know their neighbors, to talk with them on text chains and text threads. And so they're overall more sociable with the people who live around them than people without those 4-year degrees. And part of it is about an infrastructure that supports people engaging, right? Like, so one of your folks who just called in that note said that they organize a get together with their neighbors. And what's happened is we sort of shift the responsibility to this kind of activities from institutions. Think of like your churches, your schools, your civic organizations, and we've shifted that responsibility to individuals. So now your responsibility for organizing your book club or getting together with neighbors to sort of clean up. And there's no sort of umbrella organization to sort of help and facilitate that work.
I am curious, we talked at the top of this segment about whether or not people need their neighbors as much anymore. Whether you want to be social with your neighbors, you might just need them to help you fix something, the old example of lending you a cup of sugar, etc. Do you think the fact that technology has made some of that reliance maybe a little less obvious, it's contributed to the trends we're seeing, or is it kind of too hard to say based on the numbers that we've collected?
No, I think it's absolutely part of what's going on, right? That we have GPS tracking systems in our pockets now, right? We carry around mapping software that's really sophisticated. So we don't have to ask strangers for directions or where something might be located if we're visiting a new city or just trying to navigate around our community. We have TaskRabbit to help us put together a bed frame or mount a TV. We have Lyft and Uber. So we don't have to ask our friends or maybe a neighbor to take us to the airport during rush hour traffic. And so I think what has happened is, yes, we are more self-sufficient, but it's come at a cost, right? So we're now not relying on the people around us to help with these kind of basic tasks. And so we're not forming these connections in the process.
I did wonder, Daniel, because you talked about how we spend more time at home than ever, right? And yet that hasn't really translated into more community connections. And so why do you think that is? And I know technology is part of it, but if you're at the house, you're in the backyard.
Yeah, you're working from home.
You're working from home. Like, why wouldn't you just have coffee on the porch with the neighbor?
Yeah, I mean, I think so we talked about technology, but I think there's also a shift in culture. So we asked this question about what makes someone a good neighbor. Is it them being proactively engaged in your affairs, sort of reaching out to you, perhaps even if you didn't ask? Or is it people minding their own business? And we've seen that more Americans say that what being a good neighbor means is kind of staying away, minding your own business. And we're seeing a really significant shift by generation. So younger people are much more like to embrace the idea that neighbors should keep to themselves. But that's different than how older Americans thought about being good neighbors.
Well, a lot more to dig into, but we do have to end this particular part of the conversation here. That's Daniel Cox, director of the Survey Center on American Life at the American Enterprise Institute. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today on Studio 2.
Thank you.
So on the other side of this break, we're going to talk about, in some ways, how we can fix the problems that Daniel was laying out. And we're getting some great suggestions from all of you writing in about how you relate with your neighbors. So we're going to take some of those calls. We're going to read some of those comments. And we're just going to learn about basically how to be better neighbors.
Yeah, how to show up in our community. And we want to hear your stories of neighborliness, right? You can give us a call, 888-477-9499. The email is studio2@whyy.org. I'm really looking forward to this part of the conversation. This is Studio 2. We will be right back. And welcome back to Studio 2 here on WHYY. I'm Cherry Gregg.
I'm Avi Wolfman Aaron. If you're just joining us, we've been talking so far about America's decline in neighborliness and the impact that has on communities.
And now we're at solutions time, Avi. There are so many ways to show up for the people who live closest to you. Even the tiniest gestures make a huge difference. We have some great neighbors in the studio with us for the rest of the hour. Caitlin Corkery is the senior manager of series productions here at WHYY. She is the creator of WHYY's new show. It's called The Good Neighbor Club, or Good Neighbor Club. Caitlin, it's so great to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about neighbor stuff. I can't wait.
Yay.
Also with us is Roxanne Patel Shepalavi, the executive editor and co-executive director of the Philadelphia Citizen. Roxanne, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And we know we have some really, really good neighbors in our audience, too. So today we want to hear from you. Tell us how you make an effort to be a good neighbor. What does community look like where you live? The number is 888-477-9499. The email is studio2@whyy.org. And for the folks on Facebook or YouTube, you can put those comments in the chat. Let me bring in a caller. We have Susan from Northwest Philly on the line. Susan, you're on Studio 2. What's your question or comment?
My comment is what a fabulous topic. And I've lived in the suburbs, grew up in the suburbs, lived in pretty much all the counties around Philadelphia, as well as in the city. And it was amazing how in the suburbs, you could live there for 5 years and people never talk to each other. So that was my experience there, with the exception of Levittown, PA, which was built with these giant backyards, and all the houses had the same backyard. So they kind of built that suburb to make sure that kids could go out and play with their people in the backyard and everything. But here in Philadelphia, I'm calling on the topic of a fabulous thing that is done and supported by all the authorities, which are block parties.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, how about it? And sometimes people do it officially, telling the authorities, we're going to block it off. Sometimes they don't. But the point is, everybody's tolerant of it. Oh, we got to turn around. It's a block party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tradition for sure.
It's fantastic, too. And, like, the streets are blocked out. Kids are running around in the street, and they're all excited because they're running around in the street.
I love it.
They get to know kids 1 block away. And here, I'm thinking of that guy, Jonathan Haidt, talking about today's kids with the screens. They're becoming
right.
not well at personal interaction. So
more block parties.
That's the
Thank you so
prescription.
much, Susan from Northwest Philly. I
agree wholeheartedly with that. In fact, I met a lot of my neighbors through block parties over the years, and we have one coming up on my block. I think it's in like a month. But a lot of people, Caitlin, Corkery, we want to get to that place, you know, where we're running around with the kids on the block, and maybe there's sprinklers and fireworks going off, and we don't know where to start. We don't know how to meet the neighbors, and it sounded like Susan had that problem in some places that Susan had lived. So, where do you start if you want to become better neighbors with your neighbor?
Yeah. My advice and my experience in being a good neighbor always starts with building the relationship when things are good. Because I don't know about you, like, I think the most stressful part about neighbor interactions, right, is going to be like when someone's friend is visiting and they block your driveway, when the sideway's not, like, there's going to be all these moments of tension. So starting those conversations when you first move in, and when you feel like you can start to find common ground and you can start to like build a nice rapport. Like, I always like to start when things are easy and good, and we can start to build that foundation.
Do you have a go-to move?
My go-to move,
a lot of people do the cookies or whatever, the brownies.
I was going to say my go-to move was always, and I caveat all of this by saying, like, my experience in my current neighborhood was that as soon as we moved in and we were like going into our house, moving boxes, our neighbors, Charlotte and Damon, they came to our driveway right away. So like they established the culture, like we all know each other on the block, and that made it so much easier as a new person.
For sure.
Because you don't want to be the new person moving in and everyone's like, we've been keeping to ourselves.
Yeah.
And you like bust through.
But
they
cool
set it up.
better. Yeah, exactly.
And then they like invited us in, which was awesome. My signature move when I lived in the city and I lived in apartments was anytime I was going to have an intimate gathering in my home of 15 to 50 people, I would make cookies in advance and I would drop it to my neighbors, and I would drop it with my cell phone number to say like, hey, I'm Caitlin, we've passed when we were doing laundry or whatever it is, to be like, I'm just going to drop this off. If you have any problems, if we are too loud, if Missy Elliott is just blasting through and you can't sleep, like come call me and we'll talk about it. And that would at least
but eat the cookies first so that you know,
yeah, you're right.
so
and
that
like,
we can keep going.
And they were good cookies, so it worked. If you make bad cookies, maybe this strategy won't work for you.
Well, buy them at the store. There you go.
Yeah.
So we have Halloween in the city. So Halloween in Philly, kids tend not to knock on the doors. All the neighbors come out and they sit on
the steps.
Yeah, they sit on the stoop, or in our case, because we have porches, we kind of stand. And so it's similar, where it's like that's how you get to know your neighbors in good time, because everybody is so excited, and like, you know, it's like a big happy occasion to sit outside and you meet all your neighbors that way.
Yeah,
perfect.
I love that. Jonathan on YouTube says, years ago, I used to shovel out parking spaces from our older neighbors in Lambertville, New Jersey. Now I'm the older person and I've got a driveway in Yardley. Luckily, my neighbor has a snowblower. So used to use, you know, like being kindness and doing a little service. Let's bring in another caller. We have Eve from Kennett Square on the line. Eve, you're on Studio 2. What's your question or comment?
Eve, are you with us?
Oh, we don't have Eve. And by the way, you can tell us how you make an effort to be a good neighbor. What does community look like where you live? 888-477-9499. Email is studio2@whyy.org. Danielle from Glenside is on the line. Danielle, you're on Studio 2. What's your question or comment?
Hi. I was just going to suggest that people join their local pay it forward or buy nothing groups in their neighborhood, which you can find on Facebook or social media. And it's a very sort of community organized group, and it's all about just giving stuff to your neighbors that you're no longer needing. It's also a way to, not be engaged in capitalism and help people who maybe don't have as much means. And I've met a lot of neighbors that way, both giving stuff that I no longer need and picking up stuff that I can use. And it's just been a nice sort of community neighbor meet way, and it's pretty easy. I
love it.
Check
Thank
out your pay it forward or buy nothing local group in your neighborhood.
Thank you. That's Danielle from Glenside. I wanted to follow up with you, Caitlin, because you happen to be in a neighborhood where people were warm and fuzzy. I live in Fishtown. I will say, Kensington East, so 3 blocks outside of Fishtown, and people are not as necessarily, my block anyway, not as necessarily warm, fuzzy. If you wanted to be the catalyst for maybe you're new to the block or you've been there for a while, but you just have been longing for a little bit closer knit neighborhood, how do you sort of like kick that off? Can you change the culture?
That's such a good question.
Both of y'all are looking like...
Well, yeah, because it's so hard, right? Like, again,
Yeah.
you don't want to be the Kool-Aid man busting through
Exactly.
and being like, it's a different place now. When we're all hugging. But, like, there is this opportunity to read people and, like, despite it all, we need each other. Something is going to happen at some point. The power is going to go out. Something is going to happen where you are going to be in contact with your neighbors. So I think like finding the entry point, if you got a bunch of people who are like, we're keeping to ourselves, we're not doing this, you're going to be on the street at some point. So like small highs, small nods, small whatever. I think like little baby steps, identifying people from a larger community, from your buy nothing group, from whatever, like, I mean, if you're in any like Collingswood mommy groups or like the Fishtown, all the mommy groups are like,
This is so true.
like you find your people in like other niche pockets that are related, or you find your running groups or whatever it is. So you find them maybe outside of your block and then gradually start to fold in. Like ideally, right, you love all the people on your block and you get along really well, although it can also swing the other way where you're like, everyone's too close and then you're having a party with your other friends and they're like, hey, what are you guys doing over there?
That's right. That's right. That's so true too.
Because Roxanne, there is a line, right? You want to be friendly, but you don't want to open the door for nosy neighbors either, right?
Totally. So we have a little free library outside our house, and I have to say that is a really great way to also encounter neighbors. So not everybody who comes at Little Free Library is on our block. Sometimes just people walking by, but we have people who are really excited to put their books in, to take their books out, and it starts conversations. So there are other things you can do that are sort of like outside of your house, or that you are sort of welcoming people a little bit into your space.
Yeah. And to echo the points that you guys have already made, I do think like consistent positive body language goes a long way. Like if you put your head down, right? Every time you pass your neighbor, they're going to take that as a signal. If they do that to you, you'll take that as a signal. If you say hi every time, it's a totally different signal. And you're not being imposing by saying hi. I don't think, Caitlin.
No, and like I'm like it's easy for me to say I'm extremely extroverted, but I'm a big proponent of small talk. I think small talk gets a bad rap, but like even our local coffee shop, which is RIP Royal Mile on the White Horse Pike, it was a place where like if someone would just say something to the barista, someone else would chime in to be like, oh, I read that book too. Like just little small interactions, so much so that like people started to be regulars at this coffee shop, really got excited to know each other. When it shut down, a couple that was regulars, they now host a regular coffee shop in their house every Monday.
Oh,
and
wow.
they invite everyone who was a regular there to just come to their house to have coffee.
That's
now.
who you need sharing your
Which
neighborhood.
was really fun.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Because somebody has to be the convener.
That's what I was going to say. I think that part of this is it changing the culture, or is it sort of opening up the culture? Like maybe everybody is waiting for that person to be the one who kind of convenes everybody. Yeah. So in Philly, I think one of the things you can do is become a block captain. It makes you have to, you're elected by your neighbors in the sense that everybody has to sign your forms. If you go around and if there's not already a block captain and you have to go and meet everybody to be a block captain, they have decided that you're the block captain, and then you can organize things with the neighbors, right? And you sort of have an official role.
And being a block captain gives you an excuse to say hi.
Exactly, and it's like an official
Are you
role.
Okay?
Right.
I'm official. You
want to help us pick up the trash? Yeah, exactly.
I've been deputized to be nosy, okay? Just want you to know that.
Exactly. You gave me permission for this.
Exactly. This is what you signed up for.
Yeah.
Anyways, we would love to hear from you out there. Tell us about how you make an effort to be a good neighbor. What does community look like where you live? Our number is 477-9499. Our email is studio2@whyy.org. YouTube, Facebook, comment in the live chat. Let's bring in Molly from Norristown on the line. Hey, Molly, you're on Studio 2. Give us some neighborly advice.
Yeah, I was just thinking that we had a really great time this year at Halloween. Our neighbors were so kind and accepting of our child who has autism. And some were giving out adult trick-or-treating, goodies. And I just think, unfortunately, it's only once a year, but it's such a good time to walk around and meet your neighbors and meet the people who you live with.
Co-sign that. And Roxanne, you're absolutely on the same page as Molly there. And I do think a lot of it is about maintaining the momentum from those moments when we all are kind of forced to be together. It could be a holiday. It could be something bad happened. It could be there's construction on the block and we all have to talk about it. But I think sometimes it is just keeping the momentum from those moments of like forced interaction. At least that's what I found. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that, Roxanne.
No, I think that's right. And I also think, I'm interested in this survey that the gentleman talked about, because I actually think that people are probably more engaged with their neighbors than maybe they give themselves credit for.
Right, right.
And so I think like when you do the survey and they're like, I don't do anything for my neighbors, and my neighbors do anything for me, but like, are you picking up your neighbor's package? Are you?
I was just going to bring that up.
That part.
That's something that technology has forced us to be more neighborly with, which is the whole package thing. I mean, this is something. You're laughing, Caitlin.
It's so true.
Yeah. No, especially if you don't have your own porch or space.
Yeah, and shout out to my neighbor Adam. He listens to the show, has gotten my package on numerous occasions and has saved us. So yes,
we had a neighborhood porch pirate who we all kind of
knew it was,
and identified and said, back off, and collectively, and then watch out for each other's packages. But I think there's stuff like that people do, or even if you're standing on your porch while the kids are walking to school, right? You're like an eyes on the block. And I think people do a lot more of that without realizing they're doing it. And to me, it's a little bit of like a stepladder, right? So once you kind of recognize that, oh wait, it's actually really easy to be engaged with my neighbors. I just pick up their package and we have a little conversation. I think people sort of recognize it and can do more of it because it becomes a habit.
Let's read a few more comments here. Kara says, I really want to shout out my block in Fairmount, Taylor Street. Shout out Taylor Street. I think we do an amazing job of being neighborly with one another. We have a lovely vibe. We have a WhatsApp group to share happenings in the area, to offer to take in people's packages from Stoops if they're not home, and more. I recently went on a vacation and my wonderful neighbors kept my plants alive. Goody. Gary in Mount Airy says, start a Google group. Almost everyone will want to join from there. Start a skill and tool share Google sheet. That's interesting, very specific suggestion.
I love that. And I'll say this, my daughter, bonus daughter, she had her bike stolen and we were not there, and our neighbors came to us with their Ring camera video, and it was so amazing that all the neighbors, all of them sent all their videos. So we were able to track the track of this guy who stole the bike, who just came in the back area and stole the bike, her little nice white bike. But that was the first time that I had ever spoken to some of those neighbors, and they were so wonderful. And I think sometimes things can change. Are there examples that you think, because sometimes you can use something that was bad and it turns and it brings everybody in the neighborhood kind of closer, right, Caitlin?
I think a huge thing that was really burned in my brain from my childhood. I grew up in a cul-de-sac, which was really ideal. Lots of kids, everybody running in and out of each other's houses, bike races. It was awesome. But one night our neighbor's basement flooded during a hurricane, and I just remember it was maybe 2 a.m. I was 11, and everybody in the neighborhood was there, and everybody brought buckets, and everyone was just in their basement bailing out their basement and running out, which was beautiful. Yeah, it brings people together in that way too.
And it's kind of crazy how something like that makes you see your neighbors, and then you start, and then you actually build real friendships from that sad thing.
You do. I mean, we had this was during COVID, so everybody was in their houses, and somebody sped down the street and his car flipped over and made this incredibly loud sound, and he was fine, but the car was upside down and he was in the car. Every single neighbor came out, and then you see the neighbors who were barefoot, running to the car and pulling the guy out, and you sort of got this this vision of all these people in the neighborhood, and he was fine, so it was okay. But it was it was this moment where this really dramatic thing happened. Everybody came out, and you sort of had eyeballs on what sort of like how everybody takes this stuff, and then you sort of saw pockets of people getting together to chat about it.
We had a couple more comments here. We've got a lot today.
Some good ones. I
and
love it.
By the way, if you want to add your comments, studio2 at WHYY.org. You can also call 888-477-9499. We're getting your neighbor takes today. Deb says, I recently had garage doors installed that required me to get out and open them. People could still have automatic doors, but put the code pad on the door frame. This lets your neighbors see who you are, and maybe you'll wave. I do think sometimes making yourself a little less comfortable or forcing yourself out of the house in some way can establish better habits.
That's why in the city it's good when houses don't have garages.
Totally.
Because then you like see people walking on the sidewalk.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you're like forced to say hello.
Exactly.
Hey, I'm just going to keep waving. I'm going to put the arm up and just keep waving.
Eric
Love
from
it.
Drexel Hill says, I pick up trash on my block. I do snow removal, but still feel like even though I'm a good neighbor, they don't reciprocate. What should I do? Do you guys feel comfortable giving advice to Eric? I do feel bad for Eric.
Because you give and they don't give back.
Well, so I will say that I have the opposite problem, which is I ask my next door neighbor for help, but they have a lot of people who live in that house, and so they don't ask me for help.
You're
And
like,
so
I want to
then-
help you back.
And so then I feel bad. So I think what Eric can do is maybe ask for help. Be very deliberate about asking for help. I'm going away. Can you water my plants? Whatever it is. Because people actually want to help, but they probably just don't think of it or don't know how to do it. So ask.
Yeah.
Wow, that's good advice.
I want to read this comment from Maddie. I think this is important because it gets into some of the data we were talking about earlier. Maddie says, I think we would be remiss in not highlighting the fact that a lot of community-driven events, whether it be neighborhood-wide, citywide, etc., are built on the backs of unpaid labor. Growing up as a kid in the late 90s, early 2000s, I saw firsthand the hard work that stay-at-home moms do to create community in the neighborhoods that I lived in. Now, many people simply just don't have the energy at the end of the day to plan community events and meet their neighbors. And we talked about the fact that there is this like socioeconomic divide in neighborliness.
Yeah.
And I think Maddie raises the point that it could stem from some broader systemic issues. And so, I mean, I think this gets us into the point of that maybe someone's not being unneighborly because they don't want to be unneighborly. They might not have the time to organize all this stuff that we're talking about here.
But it's also like a solve for that too, right? Like, so at the same time, like, I don't think you have to necessarily be bringing these like big elaborate plans to life, because it totally is all of this unpaid labor and volunteering to do this stuff. But like, community is also the cure for some of those socioeconomic issues too. Knowing your neighbors means that if you get assigned a different shift at work, you can call on someone to say like, hey, could you actually walk my kid to school with your kid, because you know each other. So you're building a network that doesn't rely on necessarily the exchange of capital.
Building the village.
Yeah. And the thing that I always think about too is like, if you want to build the village, you have to be part of the village. So I think identifying like, what is the thing that you can bring to this? What do you have capacity to bring to this? If you're like, I'm the guy that has a snowblower, that's relevant in one season. It's a huge deal, but like, I'm the guy with the snowblower. That's where I am. If someone else is like, I know that I can be the person that picks up packages. That's easy enough for me. It's not time sensitive.
I work from home. Yeah.
Whatever it is, like thinking about, we have an episode, not to plug the show, of Good Neighbor
Plug
Club.
the show.
I'll plug the show.
Come on, you're here, Caitlin. Come on.
We have a civic show for kids. So it's for 6 to 9 year olds, but it's part of the show is about getting kids to think about like, what do you bring to your community? Like, what are your skills? Everybody has something that they can bring. And again, it might be something you don't think of as a skill. You're like, this is just something I do. But thinking about that as something that you can exchange and help with.
Yeah. By the way, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us how you make an effort to be a good neighbor. What does community look like where you live? 888-477-9499. The email is studio2 at WHYY.org. We have Miles from South Philly on the line. Miles, you on Studio 2, and you got a tip. So give us your tip for being a good neighbor.
Yes. I just want to echo something one of your guests said, but don't be afraid to talk about nothing. I feel like there's so much emphasis when you're trying to build relationships with people you don't know, your neighbors, on asking deep questions, getting to know where people come from, their politics, their family. A lot of times I feel like those are down the road, and you're better served by just talking about the weather.
Yeah.
Talking about the weather. An underappreciated art form. It's always changing. Everybody has something to say about it. It brings people together. Just like lean into like the most mundane.
The art of small talk. Thank you so much, Miles from South Philly. I want y'all to sort of like make the pitch for being a better neighbor, because I don't think we talked about that. Like, there's a lot of benefits to this, like, and it's worth sort of getting out of your comfort zone, right, Roxanne? If you're like more of an introverted person, maybe you nervous about going out there, breaking into the conversation, you don't have a dog, how do you get cool with the dog people. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I do. I think so. One of the things that I think is really beautiful about a neighborhood and a block is that you can everybody on that neighborhood and that block basically has the same intentions, right? Everybody wants to have a healthy, safe, vibrant, beautiful neighborhood that they live in. So I frequently think about one of my neighbors. We share a birthday. It happened to be election day in 2016. We voted different ways, which I discovered the next day. And I was like, wait, what? And then I realized he's a great neighbor and I'm a great neighbor, and we bond over our neighborhood. And we talk about the neighborhood, we think about things that are happening there, and we work together side by side to make a better neighborhood, right? And that to me is so beautiful because it shows you that like you don't have to be divided. You are actually united in your block, your neighborhood, your community, your city.
I love that. I mean, it just goes to show that you can have differences, but there's a lot of things just by living
next to each other.
You have in common.
Yeah.
Love it.
Let's bring in another caller. This is Sarah from Lansdale on the line. Hey, Sarah, you're on Studio 2. What's your question or comment or neighborly advice?
Hi. Yes, thanks so much. I was saying that I lived in Elkins Park before I moved to Lansdale, and Elkins Park had a really strong community feel. And we moved to these larger properties, and we just didn't experience that. So I started inviting women in the neighborhood over for tea parties, and we all bring a teeny tiny, literally, amount of food, and we sit there having tea, cup and cup after tea of tea. And then one thing that I was thinking about doing is hosting like spaghetti dinners, where I just say, I'm going to cook up a lot of spaghetti, and then just inviting anybody who wants to show up. Because I loved what your speaker or caller or somebody was saying about being a good neighbor is really important to me, and loving and trying to create a wonderful space around me is really important. And I just feel like it does just take these small invitations to open up big things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that.
And I do think a theme we are finding, no surprise, is that food and drink helps a lot. Let's read this comment from Judith, who says, I live in a condo building. I like to cook, but I live alone and I can't eat everything I make. For instance, last week I made a big batch of gazpacho. This week I made ratatouille. Hey, invite me over, Judith. So I asked neighbors if they would like some. They never say no. They're so grateful to have delicious homemade food using fresh seasonal ingredients. Judith says, I even deliver, and then a neighbor in return brings her flowers. Another one is a doctor who provides health assistance on call, I guess.
Wow.
So they've got the whole, you were describing the village, right?
I know, like, it's a nice,
Judith has got this like nice
she's in
little,
like a little Richard Scary world.
Yes.
She's
it's
like
a
trading.
community. It feels that makes me feel warm and fuzzy when you hear about that, and I think that's what people really love. I gotta ask you all about advice for disputes, because it's not always roses and chocolate chip cookies, as sometimes there's beefs between neighbors. How do you sort of deal with that in a neighborly way and not end up in like one of these shows about neighborhood beefs?
I think the Post-it that I put at the forefront of my mind whenever I am like, things happen and you're like, why would they do this? You're like fuming and having the fight in your head before you even talk to them. Is always assume best intentions.
Yeah.
Like you don't know
we
why
often
anything
do
has
the
happened.
opposite.
Immediately.
Don't
They're
give
doing
grace
this to hurt me.
these days.
Yes,
Yes.
they did it intentionally to be nefarious, but like assume best intentions. And that has been like so useful for me in every tense neighbor situation. Again, building the foundation of like the first time I talk to you is not when I'm coming over to be like, why did this thing happen? And also coming in to be like, hey, I noticed this. What can I do to help? Being part of the solution in it. And again, some people are not going to meet that. They're not going to respond in a way maybe that's as positive.
You're not going to have 100% hit rate with neighbors. I just don't. I think that's just impossible.
Yeah.
But I think you can get to a majority kind of consensus, good vibe in a neighborhood.
You don't go over there mad. Try to.
Yeah.
I also think if you are the person that they are mad at, apologies go a really long way. In fact, apologies go so far that people can sometimes get annoyed because they can't be mad anymore. So instead of reacting with anger, listen carefully and assume responsibility, right? If you in fact did do the thing that they're really mad about, don't answer them with yelling, answer them with a genuine apology how can we solve that,
Mea culpa. Let's bring in another caller. This is Amy from Bucks County. Amy's got some advice for us. What is it, Amy? You with us, Amy?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to add a different flavor, and I'm so enjoying your show, and it's making me want to get my neighbors better. I know all my neighbors' dogs' names.
That's such a good idea.
So I'm like, oh, look, it's Lucky's daddy.
I think you don't know your neighbor's name, but you know the dogs.
You know what that is, though? That's
you do the show. Oh, there's Max's mom.
Exactly. And Amy, I think what Amy is pointing out. Thanks so much, Amy. I think what Amy's pointing out is like showing interest in something that someone's interested in. This works in all types of relationships, not just neighbors. But because dogs happen to be out in the world, they are often a good conduit for conversation, for connection. You guys are nodding along. You agree, Roxanne? Yeah,
totally. Yeah, I mean, I think that's right on. And when you walk by your neighbors' houses, you're able to see a little bit of what they're interested in or what they're showing to the world, right?
Yeah.
So I have a Ukrainian flag on my house because my husband's Ukrainian American, right? That's a conversation starter. People will stop and ask about that. Or people have planted beautiful flowers, or there's like something that you can kind of see about how they are living just based on what they're sort of displaying. And so, yes, it might be dogs, it might be kids, but it might just be something that you're noticing about their house or their car or whatever it is.
You know what mine is? I have a porch goose. I have
one of those.
It's like
what
a big.
Is that?
You guys know about geese? Porch geese?
No.
I know what geese are.
Okay,
but...
well, let me tell you about a porch goose. This is like so suburban. It's like a big, like 3-foot plastic goose that you dress in outfits. So there's like a whole.
This is not just a Caitlin Corkery thing.
This is a true life thing. You're gonna see them all the time now, Avi. You're gonna be walking around and be like, "There's a goose."
I'm on the lookout for the porch
now,
goose.
Okay. The scales off the eyes now.
I got
ahead.
a goose. My goose is currently dressed in a strawberry outfit, but I knit her a sweater for the winter. She has a quilted witch outfit for Halloween. I know all my other geese people in the neighborhood, and we'll like talk at like school pickup. Someone will be like, "Do you have a goose? What's the goose wearing next month?"
Why
and
are they geese though?
Because
they just
love
are
geese. Whimsical. It's
They're
really
just
fun.
whimsical. And where do you buy the outfits? I'm sorry, we have to get on this for a second.
Etsy, but you can DIY them. I find the quality is not great on the mass-produced ones.
Oh my goodness!
This is a
You're
whole
so
separate
talented.
show.
You're like knitting these, but it gives you conversation. It seems like finding ways to start a conversation with your neighbor. Some of the nothingness, because you get to talk about geese, which is not nothing, but I'm just saying it gives you a door. It opens a door for conversation.
So I will also do a little plug for the Citizen. So in the Philadelphia Citizen, there's a piece I wrote that is 52 ways to make a better city, and it's like very small things you can do that are, and it might be you're at a coffee shop and you buy the cup of coffee for the person behind you, right? It's of course cleaning up the trash all up and down the street, the litter. It's little things that people can do. Some of them are big things, but most of them are little things, because just to give you some other ideas for how you might befriend your neighbors or your community.
I love that.
We got ideas, we got geese, we have so much to think about as we wrap up the show. Let me thank you, Roxanne Patel Shapalavi, executive editor and co-executive director of the Philadelphia Citizen, for your time today on Studio 2.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Caitlin Corkery, a senior manager of series production at WHYY and creator of WHYY's Good Neighbor Club.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And of course, thank you to everybody who called in. And now, though, because it's Thursday, it is time to reveal our Studio 2 DJ of the Day. Charlie, hit it.
Hello, friend. I mean you. You ain't got to be shy or cool. Grab yourself a chair, set yourself down. It's okay.
That song is Room on the Porch by Taj Mo. Thank you to Thomas from Bethlehem for choosing that song and being our DJ of the day. I had never heard it before, and I feel so light. I feel so free.
I feel warm and fuzzy.
I feel warm. Like I don't
like
even
a sweater.
Do you know who Taj Mo is?
I don't know who Taj. I'm gonna look.
I wish Taj Mo was my neighbor. Was like playing this song next door all day long. That'd be great.
I love it. Thank you so much for being our DJ of the day, Thomas. And of course, I got to say thank you to our producers, Debbie Builder, Hazel May Bryan, Paige Murray Bessler, and Ben Abrams. Mike Schiffler is our visual producer. Charlie Kyer and Tina Calicay engineered today's show. Our executive producer is Kevin McCory. Joan Isabella is WHYY's audio general manager. From Studio 2 here at WHYY in Philly, I'm Cherry Gregg.
I'm Avi Wolfman-Arent. See you later, neighbors. And next week on the show, if you grew up in the late 80s or early 90s, you're old. Were you a Double Dare viewer? Little known fact: production on the kids' game show started right here in Philly, here at WHYY.
I love that show.
We'll talk to host Mark Summers about what made it iconic and oh so entertaining.
Plus, why Gen Z is taking up so-called granny hobbies. You know, knitting, quilting, and bird watching, if you didn't know. Join us next week for a great lineup. Coming up
Bird
next,
watching is a granny hobby.
That's what the internet says. Up next on WHYY, it's Here and Now. See you next week.
Justice for the bird watchers.